In this video, I'm going to be giving some thoughts on the new Cosmic Disclosure episode, as well as telling you about this new exciting project. Hey universe, this is Joseph Irwin, and this is my new project, Bite-Sized Disclosure, where we'll be bringing you some of the newest information in a really digestible way, and also covering some of what's been coming out over the last couple years in, again, just a really easy put-together format. First one being this video right here. Let's get into it. The newest episode of Cosmic Disclosure, which is called Capture and Interrogate. And it really illustrates the coming and going of extraterrestrials on the planet at this time, or in the recent past. And Corey claims to have been directly involved in what he calls a capture and interrogate program within the secret space program, where basically they're monitoring the skies, they're making sure everybody who's coming and going is authorized, and the people who are not authorized, just like it sounds like, they need to capture them and interrogate them as soon as possible. One of the things that Corey says is that the Capture and Interrogate program is actually very similar to Men in Black. If you've ever seen that movie, it presented a lot of really unique concepts that we're now understanding was a form of soft disclosure, or rather a form of telling the public without telling them and getting them used to these concepts. So basically he's saying that there is a program or organization within our military, within our secret military, our secret space program military, and their job is to apprehend unauthorized visitors and find out why they came here. And that's exactly what he describes doing. So basically, main goals were to stop those who were not permitted, extract information from them obviously, and then the other really interesting part that ties back into Men in Black is policing those who are authorized to be here, which when I heard that, it was just like a ping, like, so there are authorized ones who are authorized to be here. So if we kind of read between the lines there, we can instantly understand that if this is true, then we have already developed these complex systems for how do we interact with these extraterrestrials. What do we do if they come and they have an Earth visa, if you will? What do we do if they come and they don't have an Earth visa? You know, what do we do if they come and they come to the wrong spot? What do we do if they come and they come to the right spot but they don't have the visa, but they're not actually bad guys, you know? So I'm just giving examples, and those specifically weren't talked about in the show, but I'm reading between the lines here. Corey's saying that, you know, their job is to capture and interrogate, but also to police those who are authorized, which is really, really interesting. If you saw Men in Black, they're doing just that. They're basically acting almost as like immigration officers. The main Men in Black, like underground, the secret facility in the movie is operated by extraterrestrials and humans, and they are monitoring the planet. They're making sure people don't invade. But in the movie, it's a very kind of lax atmosphere, and it's clear that a lot of those beings are authorized to be here. And the Men in Black do kind of act as an investigative force, a detective force, and also a policing force. Like, what do we do if this extraterrestrial who's permitted to be here gets in a fight with this extraterrestrial who's permitted to be here? You know, what are the rights? You know, how do we arbitrate? So it's just so many questions are opened up with this subject, and which is basically, we developed these systems already. What are these systems? How many people are coming and going? How many extraterrestrials are currently living among us? So all those questions I don't have the answers for right now, but we're moving in that direction, which is the point of this video. The other thing that Corey says that I thought was really interesting is he points out that there are very specific rules to the ones that are living here. So the ones that have immigrated to Earth, for whatever reason, they have very specific rules on how they're able to interact with society. And one of the things that he says very clearly is they're not allowed to hold positions of great power. They said they can be part of corporations, they can be, you know, high up scientists, they can be very, very important part of the process, but they can't hold a direct position of power. And I suspect we probably learned that one the hard way. And if you look into other soft disclosure information like Stargate SG-1, in Stargate SG-1, one of the episodes of Stargate SG-1, there is an extraterrestrial, a negative extraterrestrial, who had been posing as a human for quite some time, and he actually created a cult somewhere in the States and had many followers, and SG-1, the Stargate unit, basically follows his trail and finds him, and he's somewhere in the United States. He looks like a human, he has a cult, and he has like a standoff, you know, with the authorities there because he's not cooperating. And I suspect something like that probably happened. That's probably why it's in that episode, and it's probably why we've developed these rules of no positions of power if you're an extraterrestrial who lives here. Obviously that can get really tricky. So that's just another really fascinating thing that comes out of that line of questioning. So the other thing that's really important that was pointed out by Corey, I think David actually asked, you know, who was policing the solar system before we had the ability to? And Corey basically said that the positive factions were playing as a counterbalance before we were able to go into space. And once we had reached kind of like an interstellar status, meaning we could travel quite easily throughout the solar system, we had technology advanced enough where we could actually start to defend our borders. And so we did. So basically what he said is once we had received the technology, then the reins of kind of how the immigration on the planet happens was given back to us. Another thing that comes with this understanding is the concept of actually having prisons and holding places for some of these extraterrestrials who maybe are very aggressive or very chaotic or have negative intentions for the Earth. And so we actually have secret prisons, apparently on and off planet, where we are apprehending these beings, we're interrogating them, and maybe holding them indefinitely or for long periods of time, which brings up a whole nother subject and concept of, you know, human rights versus extraterrestrial rights and all that we're going to have to really digest as we move forward. We're willing to go there, right? Especially this community. Another thing that Corey said is most of the invaders that were captured actually look very human or humanoids. A lot of them are indistinguishable from us, he said, except for their smell, which is really interesting. Both Corey and Emery Smith related that these beings are very different at first, but once they've been part of our society and they've eaten our food, they start to act more like us and they start to smell like us. And before they've eaten our food, they smell really weird. And that was something that was really interesting too. Only a small percent of the invaders, meaning the ones who come unauthorized, were actually non-humanoids. If we were to see a lot of these beings coming and going, they would look really strangely familiar to us, except for their technology would be very different, their language would be very different, their culture and ways of acting would be very, very different. So just a lot of things to think about, but something that consistently comes up and up again and again is that the human form is actually very common, the archetype of the five. And by five, I mean like I have a head, I have an arm, I have another arm, I have a leg, that's five. I have 5 fingers, right? So the fractal of me at a base level is definitely 5, and that actually has to do with why the pentagram is so heavily part of the occult practices and stuff, has to do with mastery of the 5. But that's a whole nother concept. Finishing up this video, some random stuff that was thrown out in the video that I thought was really interesting. Corey talks about intercepting some amphibian beings. Doesn't really go into detail, but I thought that was really interesting. Some amphibian space beings. And a cat being that was found, or a cat being that they had captured that was extremely advanced, and basically they didn't even have the technology to really capture it because it could teleport. One of the last things I want to throw in here came towards the end of the video. It was really interesting. It was Corey talking about interstellar trade routes and how they had been well established at this point. So I'm also reading William Tompkins' book right now, Rest in Peace, one of my total favorite people on the whole planet, absolute legend. Go look up William Tompkins if you're not familiar. But having said that, I'm making a bite-sized disclosure about William Tompkins because I'm reading his book right now. So one of the things about William Tompkins that I found was so fascinating that related to the subject was how when they're creating these projects and they're creating these missions and they're creating these ideas to be submitted to the military, one of the things that they said over and over again is that we need to show them that there's going to be great economic benefit for our planet by going out and trading with other cultures and mining asteroids and bringing all these rare materials back to the Earth. So I just want to throw that in there to corroborate what Corey is saying about the interstellar trade routes. In William Tompkins' book, it's kind of like seeing the very beginning of what Corey Goode is talking about, which is they're saying to make these proposals and basically to get the military to bite on this hook of like super deep space interstellar travel. One of the tactics that they used in the think tanks was to basically show them that this would bring just incalculable economic goodness for the people of the United States and the world. Thank you so much for watching. Please share this and similar information. We are the change. Clarity is simple. Bite-sized disclosure. If you want to help with this project or similar projects, please send a message to me or comment on this video. I am actively seeking to collaborate with anybody who's inspired because we are going to make this together. I love you so much. This is Joseph Irwin. Peace.